SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Never take your heart health for granted. For just $99, you can get a complete screening and know your risks. Call 601-249-5198 to schedule your Happy Healthy Heart screening at Southwest Mississippi Regional Medical Center.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith here in for Richard on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. It is just after 6 a.m. here on Thursday, January 8th. The day is upon us, Lance.
It is here. If we're talking about your favorite team and they're traveling out west.
What else can we be talking about other than the Fiesta Bowl tonight?
It doesn't feel real yet. I don't know about you. As an Ole Miss fan, you know, the World Series run following Mississippi State winning it was literally like icing on the cake. Not because you won up to Mississippi State, but because Mississippi was back to back.
Yeah, it was focused. A little bit like 2014 in football when both teams were so good.
You know, I feel that the trajectory for State is swinging up. I know they didn't get the bowl win that they wanted, but I'd love to see Ole Miss take it to the house, man, win it all. And then State have a great season next year as well.
I agree.
I find that it's just more fun when both are good, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. I enjoy it more. I tune in more, and it's not because of anything else other than I like Mississippi.
Right.
I like it when Southern's good and Jackson State's good, the focus. So it's nice to have a SEC team, and it being our SEC team. The other
completely
one,
agree.
For
completely agree.
Fans. But yeah, it's a big day, and the weather out there is not delightful. If you're thinking of Arizona weather, Lucian, is
it hot?
No, you got a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms today, and in the desert, mostly cloudy, low around 51 during the day. Not a lot of wind to worry about, but as you go through the evening, more showers and thunderstorms are possible. 3 p.m., 4 p.m., high of the day will be about 59. Then you get into the evening and you got some heavy winds of about 20 miles an hour and 38 degrees out there in Arizona.
38 degrees.
Yeah. It does that one more night through the week, basically.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Nobody cares what the weather is on Saturday.
You're on your weekend vacation, you're
That's fair.
Around.
That's very fair.
But no, I mean it's just one of those. The weather there is going to be a lot more chilly. You would think. The desert wouldn't be, but here in Mississippi, it's 75.
I mean, it's
windy.
Spring, fall, almost late summer weather right now outside.
It is. I mean, if you're in the Delta, you may get a little chance of precipitation earlier in the day. It'll pick up through the evening, about 70% chance. The weather, again, it almost feels like tornado weather.
No doubt about it.
I'm not saying it is, but it just is with the wind, the warmth. You had following
a lot of
cool
energy
snap,
in the air.
A lot of energy. So within the Delta, you expect some rain. It could be about a tenth and a quarter of an inch. So not a ton, but you will have some wind.
Just enough to get it nice and kind of steamy. Yeah.
Well, that in the Delta, it's a soup bowl. So
True.
If you're out hunting, those trails are going to get a little deeper this week, maybe, and a lot more fun for the kids to come back. And then you'll have to do some hosing off of the side-by-sides and such, but that's such is life in the woods.
Yep.
Again, Corinth, Mississippi, nothing really to worry about today other than it's 71 degrees and you have some wind. Tonight, chance of precipitation is picking up to around 70% again. Tomorrow, up to 90%, and the weather's still going to still be warm in the day, nice in the evening in the mid-50s, and we'll get down to the coast and actually, let's do Jackson first. Same here, mostly 25 mile-an-hour winds, showers and thunderstorms tonight. Chance of the wet stuff, 80% tonight, tenth and a quarter of an inch, except a little bit more possibly in thunderstorms. And again, Friday, 75 degrees, 100% chance of precipitation here in central Mississippi. So bring the raincoats or the rubber boots and maybe an umbrella or two tomorrow for your Friday. And then Friday night, again, supposed to be 100% chance of showers tomorrow night. Saturday, it'll break a little bit, and it should be a little nicer around the metro area then. And then on the coast, You have partly cloudy, mostly in dense fog this morning, much like central Mississippi today. Be careful. We've had a lot of fog the last few days.
Looks like all over. Ed from New Hope says there's fog up in the GTR area.
Yeah.
Golden Triangle.
He had it yesterday, too. So y'all just be careful with all the fog and the mistiness. Tonight on the coast, about 20-mile-an-hour winds. It'll be nice and 64 degrees. So you don't really have to worry about too much rain on the coast tonight. But tomorrow, it'll pick up to around 60%. And you may get up to a tenth or a quarter inch again, a little bit more potentially with thunderstorms. And that blows you through tomorrow. And in the evening, about 70% chance of rain on the coast. Saturday, a wet one on the coast at 80%. And those temps are going to stay around 70 degrees in that range, 70, 75. Through the next few days, folks, so bundle up.
Yeah, that's crazy, especially compared to the weather out in Arizona.
It's gracious. Yeah, and in Arizona, you fly out there thinking, hey, this is desert weather. And no, it's going to be rainy and windy and cold. So.
Well, SuperTalk Mississippi News is live in Arizona for coverage of the college football playoff semifinal matchup at the Fiesta Bowl between Ole Miss and Miami. Our Fiesta Bowl coverage is brought to you by Good Hope Land and Timber, Yinling Flight, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde Smith, Pillium Corporation, Barnes Crossing Auto Group, and the Mississippi Hospital Association. It really is. SuperTalk is the place to be today for everything you need to know about the Fiesta Bowl. We've got Sports Talk Mississippi will be live this afternoon at 1 instead of 3 for coverage there. So if you're interested in the Fiesta Bowl, make sure to keep your dial locked on whatever it's on right now for the rest of the day. And then the game will be on the station tonight, right?
It will, yes. And then you'll have the usual TV folks. But if you like listening to the audio, which I love, they do such a good job. And you get so much more depth, I think, if you're an Ole Miss fan.
Agree.
When you listen to the broadcasters, the pros, they're great. But you get a little bit more of the wrinkles and the peel back of the onion when you listen to David and Harry and the crew. It'll be on, though. And I'm excited about listening. I'll juggle both. I'll watch it and then kind of
have the radio.
Yeah, I won't do that the whole time, but it is nice to have that option.
You don't see it as much anymore, but I remember when you used to go to games. I know there's still some people who do it, but when you used to see the folks wear the old school radio headphones. I say old, they weren't old school then. They were very modern in the 90s. Yeah, but they connected to the radio, and you'd watch the football game, but you'd listen to the radio coverage to get the detail from the announcers.
Well, you got a 6:30 kickoff is what we're showing. It's usually a little bit after that, whenever they actually get around to kicking the ball off. So 6:30 ESPN football game there. That is Ole Miss squaring off with Miami Hurricanes. Ole Miss number 6, Miami 10. Ole Miss 13-1, Miami 12-2.
And Miami's slightly favored, right? 3.5.
3.5 right now, but I think Ole Miss is going to travel well.
I think they will, too.
It usually has something to do with how the team seems to play on the road, has a lot to do with, to me, I always think that they play better when you have a ruckus, rowdy crowd in the opposing team's stadium. It just seems to really do the trick to the head of the opponent. In this case, it's a neutral site, and much like Kirby Smart had said last week, that it looked like a away game for Georgia. You hope you bring the same energy this go around with Miami having to travel all the way across the country. Ole Miss gets a little bit of a shortcut.
And look at its social media. It looks like Ole Miss is going to be very, very well represented. The number of people I've seen, in fact, the number of people I've tried to call who've said, I'm out in Arizona. Can I give you a call tomorrow?
Yeah, the phones may not even be working. They're not used to that kind of bandwidth just being usurped as quickly as possible by the Ole Miss fans. But, again, it's just one of those things where you get an opportunity to show out. And I've seen Ole Miss fans show out when their opportunity's there. You saw it with the World Series, and you set records with shot drinking. They didn't even know. They had no idea what they were getting into when Ole Miss made it. So,
but you and I've talked about this before. But there is it does feel like the whole state, and I know there are going to be exceptions. I can imagine what's going to come in on the C Spire text line when I say this, but it does feel like people are pretty unified behind Ole Miss in this. Even people who I talk to who normally would probably be rooting against Ole Miss, it feels like they are for them because it's Mississippi. It's this opportunity for us to shine. on the national stage, and I think it's a great thing for the state that we're all, for the most part, we're all kind of united behind our team. That's the only SEC team left at this point.
Well, it's also fun too because none of the teams remaining are really what I would consider your blue bloods. Those that have a permanent seat at the table. Oregon would be the closest. Indiana was one of the most losing programs in NCAA history in football. Ole Miss, it's been a while since you've had a national championship or even in a running for one.
Right.
And then Miami, they had their run. You had the 90s and 2000s, but again, fairly insignificant when it comes to recent accomplishments. So, Oregon's kind of got to be the favored when it looks at who's done it before. The other three coming in, and all four really, to me, having an opportunity here in the early playoff world to kind of make their name, to show you what they're all about. And Ole Miss, again, is the fans have showed up. The players have showed up. The coaches remaining have showed up.
Right.
And I think that it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal night. Win, lose, or draw, you just want to see the team play well, show well, and the fans. Now, what I want a domination effect. I want them to absolutely boat race Miami. I want it over in the first quarter, and I want to start focusing on the national championship.
There
that's me, but
I think there are a lot of people
like
in that
winning
same
the lottery,
boat.
right? You never know.
No Ole Miss fan is going out there looking for a good, long, drawn-out game.
I'm trying to be politically correct.
Dominance is what folks want. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more coming up.
Sneaking Sally through the alley, trying to keep her out of sight. Sneaking Sally through the alley, when up pops the wife. I said I can't find nothing wrong with being friends, 'cause sometimes she lets me use the car.
From the Venable Glass.
Things with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
Standing on a corner, looking for your babe. Standing on a corner, looking for your babe.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We've got a great show coming up. Josh Maples, an agricultural economist with the Mississippi State Extension Service, will be on at 7:20. Rob Roberson, chairman of the House Education Committee, will be on at 8. A lot of news there as we start the legislative session. The House put out a major package of education reforms yesterday. Senate's also been putting out its own version of school choice, and so we'll have a good opportunity to talk with Chairman Roberson. And then at 8:35, Richard Cross, host of Mornings, will be with us live from Arizona to tell us a little bit about what we got going on out at the Fiesta Bowl, how things are, what the fan outlook is. So stick with SuperTalk, stick with Mornings, and then stick with SuperTalk for the rest of the day here. Kind of a big day for birthdays, it looked like.
It looks like. It's one of those where you have two competing powers here. I don't know which one you want to go with first. The North Korean political official, which is kind of an understatement of the century. If you name the man here, his name is Kim Jong-un. And
I missed him. Today's
the way
his
he's
birthday.
The way it's titled here is North Korean political official. I don't know what side of the fence.
Technically true.
Yeah, I guess if that's what you want to call a dictator these days.
Right.
Formerly educated in Gunland, Switzerland, and went to his daddy or uncles or whoever Kim Jong-un II is, his war college. So he's got the great war skills of his ancestors. But yeah, one of those interesting guys. He was a child of 3 sons, I believe, and he was the one that kind of got kept out of the spotlight. And what does he have, a competing sister?
I think that's right, but
who knows what the actual pecking order is there in the Democratic Republic of North Korea.
Exactly. I wouldn't get on his bad side.
No. Or I wouldn't get into an eating competition with him either.
You're exactly right.
All right, we got the best one though of the day though, and this is one I didn't want to go first and then go Kim Jong-un after, because this is kind of the apex of birthdays. He passed away on my birthday 3 years after I was born on August 16th. He was 42 years old, passed away in Memphis, Tennessee. But he was born on this day, January 8th, 1935, the great Elvis Presley.
There we go, the king.
The king. Tupelo, Mississippi. If you've never been to the birthplace, you ought to go. Very modest place, shows you the upbringing. And, what happens after that is kind of history. But there's not a lot. I don't think the stories of his childhood aren't told as much. But I know he got his first guitar at a little basically hardware store in downtown Tupelo, and that's a very famous place too. And so it's just if you spend any time in the area, I mean, Tupelo and Elvis, that's like a ham and cheese sandwich. They just go together, and they celebrate it so well. And it's one of those things that I'm so proud of Mississippi for, remaining. And because Elvis died a long time ago, and we continue to see influx of people from all over the world
absolutely.
that come here just to be a part of the Elvis tradition. And what a unique and wonderful tradition that is. R. Kelly, 1967. David Bowie, 1947. Stephen Hawking, 1942. Those are some big birthdays you had today as well.
Absolutely.
And let's see, I had a couple of others over here that were on the today and tomorrow list. And Noah Cyrus, if anybody knows who that is.
You're going to have to fill me in.
Yeah, me neither. Make me cry. But Shirley Bassey, one of the great James Bond films, Goldfinger, should be 89 years old.
Wow.
So you think you start in Goldfinger, and you're still around at 89 years old. Now you're seeing the Bond flicks be completely gone from kind of fun and enjoyable to all blowing up and fast-moving everything, and everybody's so surly, where that was not the initial Bond 20, early, 15.
Yeah, they were almost, they were
a little
borderline silly, yeah.
And that's what I loved about them. The new ones are just a little dark for me, but I wonder what Miss Bassey would say about the kind of the new genre of Bond.
That's a good question.
And who's going to play the next Bond? That's another great question. Daniel Craig is, I think, starting his last one. And so there you go on that.
And there's some sort of legal issue that I'll try to get read up on, because I think they're not making one right now because there's enough fighting about it.
There's a lot of infighting in
right.
the Bond universe, which makes me sad because I do love the Bond world.
Same.
But like I said, the newest ones aren't really my favorites, but I'll watch them. Bob Eubanks, the Newlywed Game host, 88 years old today. And let's see, Gypsy Rose Lee. You remember her?
I know the name.
Yeah, I remember the name, but in 1970 she passed. She was born on this day in 1911. Was a burlesque entertainer and comedian. There you go on that.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things that did happen on this day in history. Woodrow Wilson presented 14 specific war aims for World War I, and these later became the basis for the Treaty of Versailles, which actually ended the war and made dang sure there was going to be another one. 1918 is when that one happened. Ella Grasso, this was interesting, 1965, she became the governor of Connecticut. She was the first woman to become a governor of a state without her husband actually preceding her in the governor's chair. Found that pretty unique. And let's see here, and the airline battles, we remember those back in the day. 1991, Pan Am Airlines had filed for bankruptcy. It set an actual trend there with Continental going into Chapter 11 in the same year. The next year, America West Airlines did the same thing, went to Chapter 11, and then TWA went bankrupt after that. So a rough 2-year run in 91 and 92 for the airline industry.
And none of those airlines are around anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the banking industry after 08 or so. You had a lot of consolidation there. And a big one here, 1994, some folks may remember this happening, but Tanya Harding, she won the ladies' U.S. figure skating championship in Detroit. And a day after, Nancy Kerrigan dropped out because of a clubbing attack that injured her right knee on the 6th. And that was a mess of people involved in that, but really kind of orchestrated by Gil Hooley, her kind of Tanya's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend type guy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so the U.S. Figure Skating Association later took the title from Harding because of her direct involvement in the attack and eventually banned her from their competitions for life. So she got the Pete Rose treatment.
Yeah, but I think the Pete Rose treatment's a lot more questionable to me than, hey, I had a rival, had somebody beat the stew out of my rival. Like,
yeah, he gambled on a game he wasn't even involved in or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't
beating up
great.
A competitor. Not quite the same thing, huh?
Exactly.
In 98, the Unabomber suspect, Theodore Ted Kaczynski, reportedly tried to commit suicide just hours before a stunning and packed courtroom by saying he wanted to be his own lawyer and argued that he is sane. He appeared in the court with a red mark on his neck and missing his undershorts, leading to police to conclude he attempted to kill himself in his cell in the Sacramento County Jail. he was placed under 24-hour-a-day security surveillance. So that was a cuckoo brain guy there now.
And he's dead now. I think he died a couple of years ago.
He's gone now. But that was one of the more compelling stories of that era, too. The Unabomber kind of spanned a couple of decades and kind of randomly hitting universities and folks that had some kind of tie with technology. And he was such an anti-technology guy. I mean, he's probably looking at the world we live in today. I don't imagine if you gave him a cell phone, he probably had a heart attack if he still was around.
Right, because he used to send the long manifestos about stuff.
Yeah, he had the whole manifesto, the Unabomber's manifesto. Actually, is what helped catch him because his brother and his brother's wife read it and were like, "Man, we know this guy. That's your brother Ted." Great movie back in the day with Mahoney. Not Mahoney. What's the guy's name? He looks like Mahoney in Police Academy. Fred Hayes. Hayes.
Okay.
He plays the Unabomber in the first movie they ever did. It was like a made-for-TV one.
I remember when they made a bunch of it.
It was set in that era, and he did a really good job with it. So if you haven't seen that one, it's definitely worth watching if you're a Unabomber fan. And it's one of those movies you probably haven't seen, and it has some interesting wrinkles to it that some of the later works and documentaries didn't really keep in there with it. So, the Hayes guy that was the comedian in Airplane, that's the one. You know, the pilot.
I'm plays. With you.
So it's kind of odd trying to catch him as a serious role.
It's a little different than what you're used
Airplane.
to.
And he's got a ponytail, but he also has the same haircut. So, you know, back in the day where you had like your normal haircut, and then you would have a ponytail. Well, he had that in the Ted Kaczynski movie.
Huh.
So it was kind of unique watching him going, man, that's the guy from Airplane. But yeah, he does a great job, by the way.
Because he was really smart, right? He was a PhD from MIT or something like that. I mean,
really smart guy.
But clearly crazy.
And there's a lot of crazy connections there. If anybody likes conspiracy theories and deep dives, at MK Ultra, the CIA mind control experiment, that he was one of those that was actually involved in that while at school at Harvard.
Oh, interesting.
At Harvard, if I remember correctly.
Okay, you may be right.
Yeah. And so he had gone to college early at like 15 and was so out of place with everything, real kind of introverted kid in college. He wasn't so much in high school, but he fell in with one of these psychology professors and began.
And then was part of some of that testing.
Yeah, it was part of the testing. And so there's been always a lot of speculation as to what kind of kicked him off down the path of the craziness that we end up seeing.
That's interesting. Well, y'all, we're coming up on a break. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have more coming up after this.
I can't tell if the sun's gonna shine, and I don't know if you ever be mine. But I'll make love to you any old time. I can't swim and I can't fly. I ain't no fish, I ain't no bird in the sky. I can't tell if the sun's gonna shine, and I don't know if you ever be mine. I'll make love to you any old time.
From theSeabrook.com.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
He gets off on country music, 'cause disco left him cold. He's got young friends and a new wave, but he's just too friggin' old. And he dreams at night.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi News is live in Arizona for coverage of the college football playoff semifinal matchup at the Fiesta Bowl between Ole Miss and Miami. Our Fiesta Bowl coverage is brought to you by Good Hope Land and Timber, Yinling Flight, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, Pillium Corporation, Barnes Crossing Auto Group, and the Mississippi Hospital Association.
All-star list right there.
I'm telling you what. And this is, if you are an Ole Miss fan or if you're an Ole Miss fan for the day, you just need to keep that dial locked right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. We got great coverage all day. Yeah, That's right.
The boys on with Sports Talk early. Caleb will be on location providing content throughout the whole event. I think he left 2:00 yesterday. Already had an article written. So if you aren't following Caleb Sailors on X, you should. And then, of course, Ricardo de la Cruz. He will be on site with his wife and have a blast, I am sure, with all of the red carpet treatment and the fleet of Beechcraft airplanes that Richard rolls with. So, we'll get him on here in a little bit. That'll be exciting.
Did he take the SuperTalk jet? Is that how he got out there?
I think he took one of his Learjets.
One of his?
Yeah,
okay.
and he towed one of the F-150s behind it. Yeah, he's got that kind of that kind of pull. So there was one other thing that happened on this day, and I find it fascinating because kind of our neighbor down south of us. But in 2016, finally, the head of the Sinaloa cartel, Joaquin Guzman El Chapo, he was caught for the third time, if I recall. He had escaped from prison, I believe, in 2013 and 14. Got caught.
That's right.
We got him again. That dude had more lives than a cat. He was one of those interesting dudes that kind of came up from the ranks, born in the poverty-stricken Sinaloa area where most of the drug dealers, that was a very famous area. It's almost like a breeding ground for drug dealers. Worked his way up. And once he got thrown in jail in like the 90s, 93 if I recall, he wasn't the head of the cartel at that point. But he became the head of the cartel
while in jail,
yeah.
Really?
And I love the way they expressed it in the writing. Is like he got this special treatment in jail mainly because of the exchange of bribes. Really? You wonder how that works, huh? You give somebody a bunch of money and you get a tennis court in jail.
Lo and behold.
Yeah, that's and it doesn't surprise you. But we finally got him and locked him down. But one of those guys that was credited basically in the 21st century with being the largest drug dealer on the planet, the richest one. He had a organization that basically imported chemicals from Asia, made methamphetamine with it in Mexico, and then imported it into the United States. You can credit El Chapo with the tunnels. He invented the tunnels underneath the U.S.-Mexico border, air-conditioned tunnels. They even have train tracks in there.
Really?
And so on and so forth. But an innovator in the world of what we call, smuggling.
Huh.
Go back to potentially, back in Prohibition era and those things, and you can see where many fortunes were made. And not saying we should legalize everything, but the war on drugs has been a rough one. And you see us now, fast forward to where we've grabbed Maduro. And a lot of that has to do with, the drugs. Him being, a major cartel leader.
Exactly.
As a president and basically leading a narco state. Now, I know there's a lot of debate on what all we went and grabbed him for: the oil, the minerals, the gold, the drug deal. I'd say all of it.
I think that's
pretty
right.
Much every bit of it.
The commentary on the Maduro stuff, it just, to me, goes to show how broken politics is right now. That folks on the left just couldn't. I mean, you can argue different facets of that decision. I mean, us going over there, kidnapping a foreign leader. Now, I think a lot of people correctly point out, and I agree with them, he was only a foreign leader because he stole an election. I mean, he wasn't recognized by Europe or the U.S. as the leader of the country.
Well, so, he has a company with Smartmatic, if I remember, is the voting machine company that he himself and a couple of other, through his money, he gave it to two other guys. They created this voting machine company, and that basically kept him in business. And they had meddled in other elections using that same technology. So the guy had his fingers in a lot of pies, obviously.
Right, and
none of it seemed above board.
That's right. There was universal agreement that he was an illegitimate dictator of that country, and then all of a sudden Trump goes in and gets him, and you're literally seeing liberals protesting to free Maduro. Like he's a bad guy. You can argue about whether this was international law. This complied with international law or not. I think I've seen some people who say, you had to have congressional authority to go in. No president has had congressional authority for short-term military action since Roosevelt. I mean, that's dishonest, that argument.
Well, and Biden had a huge bounty put on him as well for the arrest of Maduro. So it's
and they increased it.
Yeah, to $25 million at one point.
Right.
So it's interesting to see the left and the reaction. I watched a couple of almost hilarious meltdowns on Twitter of very far left individuals that just lost it because of Maduro. You're like, are you kidding me? I mean, you are this upset.
Right.
Over something like this. This is so insignificant in your life, but yet that seemed to take over the mind of like, wow, the Trump derangement syndrome is alive and well, brother.
And there's nothing, it is so, the Trump derangement syndrome with some of these folks is so strong if he said breathing is good, I'm stealing this from somebody else, but if he said breathing is good, a bunch of people would hold their breath.
Just hold it, yeah.
Because they're so nothing he can possibly ever do is good, and it is such a problem for our politics because it used to be, everybody would fight and disagree, but at least every now and again, if they did something good, the other side would go, well, it's a good thing that we, brought down the Soviet Union. But that's gone now.
It seems to be. I mean, it's not a sport anymore. It's a blood sport.
Yes.
I mean, politics has seemingly turned on itself where it was fairly entertaining for a bit. When during the decades, you had the Nixon era and all these, you had a lot of entertaining moments in there where at least it seemed that Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals were able to kind of come back together, get some things done, and not necessarily beat each other's throats. So now it's just, you look at the things going on in Minneapolis.
That's exactly
and that's
what I was thinking.
Microcosm of the bigger picture, I think, but also a litmus test of somewhat epic proportions because it's showing you the heart and soul of the far left.
That's right. And so much of it is, I think it's a function of the decline of other institutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decline in church attendance. It's a decline in faith. And so you've got people who are looking for some sort of purpose. And you've got largely Democratic politicians who are saying, how evil these people are, how we're at the end of the republic, and this is essentially Hitler's Germany just before he took over. And, of course, people are going to react to that when they're looking for some sort of purpose.
Well, I think there's a great line in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou where, isn't it George Clooney, and they're talking about the down times, and he goes, tough times make a chump. And when times get tough, you have a tendency to believe in things that aren't real. You have a tendency to lock on and latch on to things and some mission that's not there in your life. But now all of a sudden, hey, there's this cause I can latch on to, and it gives me meaning.
That's right.
And I think that's something that maybe we're seeing at some level is that, the lack of meaning in some folks' lives have now been, they have to find it by protests, have to find it by being riled up and aggravated, and it's probably not a good idea.
Well, and the language with this stuff from Democratic politicians is just reckless. And it's going to invite more problems. Tim Walz at a graduation speech said something along the lines of ICE agents are Trump's Gestapo. Mm-hmm. They're arresting your neighbors and they're taking them to foreign torture centers. I'll get the exact quote in the 7 o'clock hour for you, but that's a lie.
Right.
And
right.
B, it's extraordinarily dangerous. People hear language like that, assume they can trust the politician who says it to be telling the truth. Mm-hmm. You're going to see people do dangerous things if they believe that's really what's going on. And so that kind of language, it is reckless. And it's the reason you're going to see, and you saw it yesterday after this incident with the ICE officer where the woman was driving at him and he used his weapon and she died. You immediately, I'm not talking 2-3 days later, a couple weeks later after there's been some sort of investigation, the same day, within hours, you had major Democratic politicians who weren't just criticizing the fact that ICE was in Minneapolis. They weren't just suggesting that there needs to be an investigation on the use of force. They said an ICE agent murdered an innocent woman, and they used the M word.
Well, the same with the insurrection at the Capitol. You blaming Trump for inciting rebellion, but what are all of these Democrat politicians actually doing? Why are they not being held accountable to the same standard in which you...
That's exactly right.
It's just a question. Again, I'm not sure I know the answer, but I would throw that out there. And at some point today, I did want to visit with you and you tell me from a geopolitical standpoint, with all of the things popping in the world today, how do we get the toothpaste back in the tube? You got so many things happening. It seems like the news cycle is so accelerated. How do we calm it down? If we are the great power, the great leader, how does America calm down some of this that's going to saber rattling?
Well, that's going to be a great discussion. Y'all stick with us. We'll have a lottery update coming up in the next segment, and then Lance and I will solve geopolitics in the first block of the 7 o'clock hour. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Person from the Venable Glass.
On your radio, on our app, or on your smart speaker. We're always free. SuperTalk Mississippi, your home for Mornings with Richard Cross.
Well, it's time for your lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. There was no jackpot winner in Lotto America. The estimated jackpot for Saturday is $12.37 million. The numbers from Wednesday, January 7th, were 3, 18, 25, 45, and 50. The star ball was 4, and the all-star multiplier was 2. No winner of Powerball's jackpot either, which is estimated this Saturday to be $124 million with a cash value of $56 million. The winning numbers were 15, 28, 57, 58, 63. The Powerball was 23, and the Power Play multiplier was 2. There was also no jackpot winner with Mega Millions. The estimated jackpot for Friday, January 9th, is $199 million. The estimated cash value is $90 million and a half. Tuesday's numbers were 9, 39, 47, 58, 68, and the Mega Ball was 24. The Mississippi Lottery has 3 new scratch-off games on sale now at authorized retailers. Leading the way is Millionaire Maker, the lottery's first-ever $30 scratch-off, featuring more than $125 million in cash prizes, including 10 $1 million top prizes. Also new are Classic Bingo for $5 with top prizes of $75,000 and Emerald 8's a $2 game offering $20,000 top prizes. Plus, to celebrate Millionaire Maker, the lottery is offering its biggest promotion ever with over $200,000 in cash giveaways. Non-winning tickets can be entered for a chance to win. Get details at mslottery.com or on the Mississippi Lottery official app and click the Bonus Promos tab. A couple of recent winners here. A Sardis woman won $30,000 on a ticket from Circle K store in Senatobia. A Smithville woman won $5,000 on a $20 full of 5,000s ticket from Sprint Mart number 9 in Fulton. And a Pascagoula woman won $1,000 on a $20 Millionaire Maker winner ticket on a ticket from Clark Oil number 38 in Pascagoula. Those are just a handful of people who are a little bit richer now, having played the Mississippi Lottery. Remember, you can't win if you don't play, but play responsibly. That's your Mississippi Lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. Lance, we were talking about this before, the woman who was killed in Minneapolis. I mean, anytime you've got the loss of human life, it is a tragedy. But it really is disheartening, the reaction you saw from Democratic politicians here. I feel like if this had happened 30 years ago, you would have had people say, we need to wait and see what all the facts are. But I think their base doesn't want to hear what all the facts are. They want a narrative. They want to be sold the narrative that gets them worked up, and that's exactly what is happening here. I mean, I hope that you don't see massive riots in Minneapolis as you have before. I know there were people clustering last night. From what I could tell this morning, they hadn't started the violent protest, but that may be because I was sleeping while they did it, and I missed the violence. But you worry that's going to come today because they've essentially said some folks from Trump's secret police came in and murdered a woman, and it's tough to imagine that's not going to elicit some really strong reactions from people.
I would be very surprised if it didn't. And as one of my mentors and bosses would say, he goes, I need a salesman that can sell a blind man glasses. I need a salesman that can sell a Eskimo an igloo. And that's what you're getting from the Democrats, though. I believe you're getting some really good sales folks.
Yeah.
They're not genuine, but they're selling you what they know you want.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're willing to sop it up and absorb it and take it in, the byproduct is like eating bad food. It's not going to be good for you, not in the long run, but it makes you feel good for now.
Well, and
for whatever reason.
I think they figured out that it works. You know, it's the sort of messaging that gets people to sign up to volunteer. It gets people to give money. It gets people to show up and vote. I mean, it
gets people to not go to a job and wait around for money from Soros and some of these soft money type of USAID places where you say, hey, you could go get a job, but no, when your job is to protest,
right.
Your job's to be bussed in to create conflict, and somebody's paying for that. That seems very disingenuous. Should be illegal.
Well, people were pointing out after the Maduro thing that you could, in these protests across the country, that sprang up spontaneously, apparently.
Yeah, of course. It's very coincidental, huh?
But within 24 hours, they had identical signs. I mean, the exact same words, the exact same
Go back to
font.
Who printed them. I mean,
exactly. That's my point. Is clearly somebody centrally is trying to stir that up, whether it's the politicians or some sort of NGOs. But there's an agenda, and there is somebody's money involved in promoting all of it. Well, y'all. Thanks for being with us in the 6 o'clock hour. We got a bunch more coming up, but coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News. This is Lucian in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Where you come first for news. Fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Mornings is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. Well, welcome back to the second hour of Mornings. Lance, how you doing, my friend?
I am hanging in there. Happy to be here. Looking forward to a big game tonight. There is another one on Friday that we failed to mention.
It's a very good point. Yeah,
a big game there. You know, it's kind of big. Got Oregon, Indiana, 13-1 Oregon versus a 14-0 Indiana. ESPN, same 6:30 kickoff. So you got two really big games here in the next couple days. Had some basketball last night. Ole Miss dropped one to Arkansas 94-87. That puts Ole Miss at 0-2 in the SEC. Mississippi State with a big W. That puts them at 2-0 in the SEC, taking down an 11-4 Oklahoma team, 72-53. And then tonight, Ole Miss will take on the ladies' side at 6 o'clock, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. And that is at Lloyd Noble Center, Norman, Oklahoma. And then let's scroll on down here. Tennessee, number 20, will take on Mississippi State, and that is at Humphrey Coliseum, Starkville, Mississippi, at 6:30, SEC Network game. So wanted to cover that because that is some stuff that, you know, we kind of got talking about Glendale and
You're absolutely right.
Didn't want anybody to forget, hey, we'll cover a little basketball too. And I hadn't pulled up Southern yet. That's my fault. But getting back to where we were going here in this first segment of the 7 o'clock is, as of January the 2026, the global security landscape is definitely characterized by the highest level of violence since World War II. I think there's 59 active state-based conflicts. 59. Pretty good number there.
Mm-hmm.
Key conflicts and trends here, and I'm just going to go over a couple of them. Obviously, Russia, Ukraine. And we're going to go back to 2022. So we're not going to put this back any further, just the last 4 years. Israel, Palestine. You got the Sudan Civil War. Myanmar conflict is kind of there going on. And Southeast Asia. You have some Venezuela, the Mali, Burkina Faso region, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Afghanistan, Pakistan border. You've had some saber rattling between India and others. The Congo. And we could go on and on. So with all of these things going on and all of the let's say, the highest level of state-sponsored violence since World War II. How do we, as the United States, the global hegemon, how do we get the toothpaste back in the tube? If you can do that, how do we quiet some of this or at least get it back to, it seems like, as you said earlier, people are solving problems without using guns and having sensible conversations. Where do we go from here, Lucian?
I mean, I don't know that the U.S. can solve every single one of those conflicts. What I do think we can do, and what we used to be better at, and I think the president's got us back, getting us back in this direction. America projecting force around the world is the single greatest stabilizer of the international order. I mean, one of the dumbest takes after the Maduro arrest, I saw multiple people in multiple publications say things like, now we've given Putin the roadmap to go get Zelensky. Now we've shown Beijing what their excuse needs to be to invade Taiwan. And let me just say, I'd like to normally be a little nicer than that, but that is stupid if you believe that. That's just stupid. Because, A, the Russians did try to kidnap Zelensky and I think kill him at the beginning of the war. They failed. And the only reason the Chinese are not invading Taiwan is because they're worried that 100,000 American troops and the entire military power of the United States will be brought to bear to defend Taiwan. It has absolutely nothing to do with the fear that somebody's going to write a story in the Atlantic that said Vladimir Putin violated international law or Xi Jinping didn't comply with historical international norms. They're worried that they're going to get beat, and that is 100% the reason they're not going to do it. And as soon as they think there won't be consequences, they will probably take those actions if they think they're in the best interest of their country. And so the best way for us to stabilize things is to project American power, both with manpower but also with other material, whether it's ships, missiles, et cetera, but the full range of American military might, for that to be around the world. Now, that's not to say we need to intervene in every conflict. But the knowledge that we have the ability to project force around the world is going to deter a lot of violence. I think, frankly, it's the reason that Putin waited until after Trump was out of office the first time before invading Ukraine, because they didn't trust that the U.S. wouldn't respond in a significant way.
Seemed like there was, and again, this is trying to be as politically correct as I can. It seems that there was a vested interest in the previous administration in Ukraine as well, monetarily speaking.
I think that's a legitimate question.
So Putin obviously saw weakness and maybe even some collusion and say, hey, this is our opportunity, this is our window. With a Trump, you don't see that.
I think that's possible. I also think there is a prevailing thought among the Democrats that the U.S. is the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, and that's a major issue.
If we would just be quieter, stay in our lane, let other people make their own decisions, that suddenly we'd live in this perfect world of harmony where everybody just gets together at the UN and talks out their problems. And that's not the way the world works. It's not the way the world's ever worked.
I'm going to pull a Charlie Kirk here. Show me one socialist country that's ever worked.
That's right.
One. Just name one. I'd love to know. And two, it reminds me of when you're talking to your papa or something and a hog got loose. And they never found that hog, and it took a few years. And when they finally found it, it was a razorback pig. It had tusks, it had hair, and all that. Because the pen and the confined nature and the schedule, once that pig got out of that, he turned wild again. And it kind of seems that's the way the world has gone a bit. It's almost like the hog got out the pen. There wasn't anything to keep it together. And that hog's been running around out in the woods and turned wild again.
And we've been what keeps it together.
And that's kind of where I was going, is without that pen, without us being the hegemon, I think you look at the world in a way you go, this is what it's going to look like and maybe be worse if we take a back seat. And again, I'm not one to send American boys to go die in foreign wars.
Right.
But the world itself, with 56 conflicts going on, and it's seemingly a president and an administration before this one asleep at the wheel for 4 years, at least globally, you see the byproduct of that.
That's right.
And that's kind of where I wanted to go is, do we as a country and do we have the leadership in place to kind of pull this thing back together, catch that hog, put it back in the pen?
I don't know. I think that's the question. We certainly do in our hemisphere, and I think that's a big part of what was going on with Maduro is, he had become aligned with the major powers that loathe the U.S., connected to Iran, connected to Russia. Some allegation that he had folks from Hezbollah operating inside the country. We think he was facilitating sending a lot of people across the border. I mean, he was an enemy of the United States. And this was a way of us asserting our authority over the Western Hemisphere, which we have done over most of the course of the history of the country. And, Thomas on the C Spire text line asks this question, so might makes right. No.
Not necessarily.
But literally throughout all of human history, someone has been in charge, at least in their sphere of influence. The world is much more global now than it was 2,000 years ago. And, I love the idea, in theory, that we're all going to magically sit around a table and solve all of our problems and say, oh, no, that's your country, that's your country. That is not how it's ever worked. Someone has always been in charge. And the best thing for the world, but more importantly, the best thing for Americans is for America to be that global hegemon and not cede it to people whose values are fundamentally at odds with ours. I mean, you don't want a world where the Chinese Communist Party sets the rules. You don't want a world where Vladimir Putin sets the rules.
And one thing that's being missed here with Venezuela is the amount of debt Venezuela was, that had pulled out, that owed China and Russia and some other powers. So this is an interesting piece there. One of the other things is you don't see the national media or even the global media for any part really showing the millions upon millions of people in the streets of Venezuela celebrating. You don't see the millions of people in Iran protesting the Ayatollah's rule. You don't see that. But those are organic. That, again, America did Venezuela a great favor, and the people seem to recognize that. Same in Iran.
That's the reason you're seeing. I mean, there's been some great video that's been posted on social media where you see Venezuelan expats in the U.S. celebrating, and the police are literally having to separate them from American liberals who are protesting the removal of Maduro. Who knows better what's good for the people of Venezuela? The people who are from Venezuela who are celebrating?
No, let's tell them how they're supposed to feel.
The folks in the Bronx or the folks in Brooklyn, who are showing up to protest because it's the cool thing to do. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We got a great show coming up, and Josh Maples, an agricultural economist with the Mississippi State Extension Service, will be with us right after this break.
I can call you Daddy, and Daddy, when you call me, you call me out, call me out.
From the Venable Glass.
Come first for news. Fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Maybe I'll start tonight. You didn't cry like me. Baby, let's just wait and see. Maybe I'll start tonight until things right.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Well, with us on the line is Josh Maples, an agricultural economist with the Mississippi State Extension Service. Josh, how are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Appreciate your being with us this morning. It's early.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a good time to talk about agriculture.
Well, tell us a little bit about how things are going in agriculture right now in Mississippi. Did we lose you, Josh?
Uh-oh. We had a great connection there, too.
I know. We were having a good conversation off the air.
Let me check on this.
Well, we'll get Josh back and talk a little bit more about agriculture.
I think he's back now. Hold on, let me
do we have
back over. Let's see here, Mr. Josh.
There we go.
There you go, yeah.
Sorry, guys. I have no idea what happened.
That's no problem. Maybe Keenum forgot to pay the internet bill.
No, I doubt that.
Blame it on Sid.
There we go. There we go. So, obviously, agriculture is a big part of Mississippi's economy and our culture. How is agriculture doing right now in Mississippi?
It's really interesting. So overall value of production for 2025 was actually up $9.5 billion of ag production in Mississippi last year.
Wow.
Really a pillar of, Mississippi economy production. But it's really different depending on which commodity you look at. So if you look at poultry had a pretty good year. Beef cattle had an exceptional year. Row crop side had a really tough year. So overall agriculture, I would say, is healthy, doing good, but there's certainly, the row crop sector in particular is really struggling right now.
What's driving the problems in row crops?
It's mostly prices. We saw some pretty interesting shifts last year. Soybeans have always been our, not always, but at least in recent history, has been our biggest crop that we plant here in Mississippi, and that was still true. But we were down about half a million acres from where we usually were, just because soybeans weren't profitable in 2025. So we saw a pretty big shift to corn. Corn also wasn't really that profitable, but it was, not quite as bad as soybeans were. So it's really a price story. We've had, low prices for a couple of growing seasons now. And as y'all know, it's not like cost of producing anything has come down, significantly over the past few years. So, our farmers, our row crop farmers in particular, are facing higher costs at a time that we've got lower prices for the crops they're producing. And it's leading a lot of them to be in negative returns territory. So not just talking low returns, we're talking negative returns in a lot of cases.
What's driving the prices being down? Is it foreign imports or just demand generally? What's making things be less expensive?
It's global demand for sure, and we've been facing increased competition from Brazil. So it's not as much that we're bringing in. So think about soybeans in particular. It's not really an import story here from Brazil. It's more of Brazil is supplying a lot of countries around the world that we traditionally supply as well. So they're an increasingly competitive country in terms of soybean production. China was a big story for us in 2025. They stopped importing U.S. soybeans for a while as part of the trade negotiations tariff issues back earlier in the year. Late in 2025, they did announce, or we announced, that China was going to purchase 12 million tons of soybeans. So that's been a bit of a boost here in the last month or so, and they've purchased about 8.5 million of those 12 so far. So it's really a global kind of demand story that's really affected prices, and we've had pretty big supplies when you look at all the countries around the world that produce these crops.
I know you mentioned China there in particular, but has the trade war or the tariffs, has it been a net loss for Mississippi farmers, or does it kind of depend farmer by farmer?
I would say for the row crop sector in particular soybeans, anytime we start talking about China not purchasing as many U.S. soybeans, that's a really big deal for Mississippi producers. We saw this back in 2017, 2018 when we were dealing with trade wars, trade negotiations there. Unfortunately, China knows that U.S. soybeans are a big thing that we produce, and so when it comes to trade disagreements between us and them, soybeans get targeted. And that's what happened back in 2017, 2018. It's what happened now as well. So hopefully we're seeing some of that relax with the announcement we saw last month that we will get back to where China purchases a lot of U.S. soybeans. If you look back 10 years ago even, about 1 out of every 3 or 4 bushels that we produced in the U.S. of soybeans was going to China. And that number is certainly much lower today than it was then. So that's been a big change for us.
How have, and this, Josh, if this is outside your area, let me know, but how has the federal policy changed with regards to subsidies to our farmers, general support for the farmers? My sense is that we're doing less than we used to nationally to try to take care of the people who grow our produce.
Yeah, it changed quite a bit in 2025. This kind of ebbs and flows as profitability changes with producers. And so certainly in really profitable years, a lot of the programs that are in place, the safety net type programs that are in place, don't pay out. And that's kind of how they're designed, right? But 2025 in particular, we saw some increased ad hoc type programs. So, USDA just announced the farmer bridge payments, and by bridge, they're talking about bridging the time period between now and whenever changes to that safety net program happen. So there were some changes in the Big Beautiful Bill back in the summer to that safety net program, but the way the programs are structured, those payments won't actually go out to producers until next fall, because it follows a marketing year for crops. So this bridge payment, our bridge program, $12 billion in support going to farmers, is meant to bridge producers from now until when those changes come into place. So we certainly have we saw an increase in government payments in 2025, but it was a direct result of the really unprofitable unprofitable period that we were in, especially in the row crop sector.
Moving, I mean, how is the beef cattle sector doing in Mississippi?
It's incredible from a price standpoint. 2025 record high beef cattle prices. Folks who had beef cattle to sell, that they were really happy generally with the prices that they got. So it had been a really tough go for beef cattle producers from about 2017 through about 2023, really. 2023, we started to see prices come back. 2024 was really good prices. 2025 was incredible. Now, the flip side of that is we're at a 70-year low in herd numbers. So really strong prices, but fewer cattle out there to sell. And of course, those are that goes hand in hand, right? That's really what's driving these strong prices we're seeing is these low herd numbers. So we're at the point where I think we're going to start to see some expansion. We've probably already started to do some of that, even though we don't have clear signs of it yet. But these strong prices should spur along some expansion on the beef cattle side. But overall, a good year for Mississippi cattle producers.
And is the reason that the herd numbers are down, is that because the economics of being in the beef cattle industry were so bad for so long, people exited or just didn't invest as much in it?
Absolutely. You're spot on. This industry is incredibly cyclical. It's really fun to study because you have periods like right now of really strong prices and everybody's like, well, why aren't people expanding? Well, the cattle sector takes a long time to expand. The producers have to decide, hey, I'm going to keep back this heifer this year. It takes, months to get her bred or longer. And then she carries the calf for 9 months. And then it's another 6 to 8 months before that calf is weaned. It's another year before it enters the beef production system. So from the point that producers decide, hey, we're going to expand to the time you actually see more cattle in feedlots or beef on the table, we're talking a multi-year process. So it just takes a while for this industry to turn. So where we are right now is really a result of the poor profitability years that we saw, certainly from 2020 through about 2022.
Josh, can you stick with us for one more segment?
Absolutely. Be happy to.
Y'all stick with us. We'll have more with Josh Maples, agricultural economist with the Mississippi State Extension Service. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We can go to paradise, maybe once, maybe twice. Traveling light is the only way to fly.
From the Seabrook County.
With Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, y'all. This is Lucian in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. With us still on the line is Josh Maples, an agricultural economist with the Mississippi State Extension Service. And if you want to be part of the conversation, or if you've got a question or a comment, send us a text at the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. We've had a few people chime in, Josh, about beef prices, just how much higher they are and how good it's been for those who are producing.
Yeah, it's I think what's interesting there in particular is the beef prices that we're seeing are high, but they're again a result of things that happened years ago.
Right.
And so the stronger returns to producers now are ultimately what's needed to lead to lower beef prices later. Because this is going to be what's going to lead producers to produce more.
In Mississippi, are most of our beef producers, are these family-operated entities, or is that increasingly big business? I would think you'd have to have the ability to sit on a lot of cash to weather those storms.
In Mississippi, is overwhelmingly family cow-calf operations. The average herd size in Mississippi is still in the 30s, so 30, 35 head of cattle. So we're talking small family production. We've got some bigger producers too, but the average Mississippi cattle producer is a family-owned small cow-calf operation.
That's interesting. What about on the processing side? I mean, are the high prices translating to? I mean, are the producers ultimately getting the benefit of high beef prices right now?
This is really interesting as it moves over time. So the beef prices and the returns in the beef sector, or the cattle sector, I should say, really move towards where the incentives are and what markets they're calling for. So, beef producers have faced really low prices for a while because there was incentive back in 2020, 2021, 2022 even, that we had a lot of cattle, more cattle than we could process in some cases, particularly during the pandemic. And so beef cattle producers saw really low prices because the signal then was, hey, we got enough cattle. Now that has switched. And so now at this point, the cow-calf producers are finally getting to realize some of these stronger returns because the incentive is on them at this point. The industry or the sector, the consumers are calling for more beef. And so we're seeing those returns actually flow back to the cow-calf producer, whereas before you would see it kind of segmented or going more towards the processing sector.
Yeah, I'd heard there was some criticism that maybe there were so few processors that they were able to command a lower price, and that not all of the profits were really getting back to beef producers.
Yeah, no, there's some truth to that. Four processors control over 80% of the beef processing market. And so certainly in times where there's a lot of cattle or more cattle than we have relative to processing capacity, you see the returns kind of go towards that processing sector more. We're just at a point right now where we're actually seeing high cattle prices because there's a clear signal we need more cattle. And that's, the processors are going to process the cattle that we produce. And right now there's the incentives, the signals are actually passing all the way through the chain for the most part to hopefully incentivize that cow-calf producer to produce more. That doesn't happen very often. We're just happen to be at the point in the cycle right now where that is what this industry is screaming for is more production.
That's great. What about poultry in Mississippi?
Yeah, poultry, the biggest component of that $9.5 billion I mentioned earlier. So $3.7 billion of value produced in Mississippi in 2025. Got a bump. Some of that's eggs, so egg production about $350 million, and broiler production, that's the chicken that we actually eat, about $3.4 billion. Prices are actually down a touch from where they were a year ago, but we increased production. So the increase in pounds sold really drove that slight bump in poultry value of production in 2025 compared to where we were in 2024.
When we saw that real spike in egg prices, at least on the retail side, was that making it back to the egg producer, or was that mostly getting captured somewhere between the the producer and the retail customer?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean, I would say it was making it back to the producers in a lot of ways because it needed to increase production, and so the incentives that were there. We increased egg production, but I would say the biggest kind of driver at that point that led to that was the spike in avian influenza or bird flu, HPAI. Whatever term you want to use. We just dealt with some real production challenges there where you had plans in place, and then those outbreaks led to reductions in supplies. So some pretty sharp changes there that led to the big spikes in prices that we saw. Luckily, we mostly recovered from that, but we are back in HPAI kind of peak season, if you will. Over these next few months. So been fortunate so far in Mississippi broadly, but certainly hope we don't have to deal with that again like we did a couple of years ago.
And so far, I mean, I know, we're not out of the woods, but so far nothing terribly troubling this season, even though we're in the middle of it.
Yeah, but so far, it follows bird migration. So think birds migrating across the country, and they tend, as they start moving, we start seeing more cases pop up. So really kind of that November through February period is when we're always concerned about it. But in particular, that winter period, we're really concerned about it. So far, the poultry sector's got really strict biosecurity measures. They work really hard to try to avoid this happening. So hopefully we can make it through relatively in relatively good shape, but it's always a concern for this industry and for consumers. It's the egg prices we saw a couple of years ago were not really a response to poor decisions made by egg producers. That was a reaction to things out of their control. So hoping to avoid that again this year.
And that was it? I assume government mandated destruction of or government mandated culling when there's an infection.
Yeah, that's right. When there's an infection, you typically go in and cull those birds because you don't want it to spread. I mean, the HP is highly pathogenic. You don't want it to get out and spread to other flocks. So typically, you go in and destroy those houses, or those birds, not those houses.
What about, say, catfish producers in Mississippi? How is that industry doing, or is that something you study?
Yeah, it is. And, I would say catfish, it's tough. It's similar to some of the other things we've talked about this morning. Cost of production has been a challenge, plagued by some fairly low prices over the last couple of years. We did see a little bit of increase in prices to catfish farmers this last year, not anything huge, but that small increase in prices we saw led to a bit of an increase in the value of production of catfish in 2025. So margins aren't great in the catfish sector, but maybe we're seeing some signs of some recovery there. Just a really tough time for ag as overall. Even though we've got these big value of production totals, production costs are really high, and so producers are struggling with that. At the Extension Service, we're trying to work with producers, help them make the best decisions they can to kind of get through these higher cost periods.
And that was the other question I was going to ask you. For people who don't know, what exactly does the Extension Service do to support our agricultural industry here?
Yeah, we try to walk hand in hand with our ag producers here in Mississippi. We've got specialists that work in pretty much every area of agriculture. So any producer of any ag product or any commodity, anything like that, if they're struggling or if they've got questions or if they want to get started in agriculture, MSU Extension is really here to help because we realize how valuable this industry is to the state of Mississippi. And we can help producers, make better decisions, make efficient decisions to be even more profitable, which of course then just feeds back into our state economy. So we really try to support that. We know this is a big sector. We host conferences. We do consultations with producers all the time. We've got a conference next week on Mississippi Ag Outlook conference where we'll have a couple hundred producers come to Starkville, and we'll talk about basically what we're talking about today. We'll talk about how does 2026 look? How do you plan for it? What are some things that you can do to try to weather these tougher times?
Well, Josh, thanks for being with us, and thanks for everything that you and folks at the Extension Service do for our agricultural economy here.
Appreciate you having us on. Thank you very much.
Y'all, we've had Josh Maples, an agricultural economist with the Mississippi State Extension Service. Stick with us for more. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard Cross here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on Super Talk Mississippi.
Now that I'm starting to learn, I feel I'm growing old, 'cause yesterday's got nothing for me. Pictures that I'll always see. Time just fades the pages in my book of memories.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard Cross here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. That was a interesting, really interesting interview. I feel like for a lot of people, we got so many wonderful families, some of whom I've heard from both on the C Spire text line and on my personal phone, who live and breathe agriculture every day. But then for a lot of us, the principal interaction is consuming the product, and you don't fully appreciate how much work and how complex that industry is to put a steak on your table or vegetables for you in your grocery store to pick up, and so that was some interesting stuff. Going back to this Minneapolis discussion that we had, Lance, think about this for a second. And Scott Jennings on CNN made a great point along these lines last night. You have people with the encouragement of elected Democrats who are following around federal law enforcement officers and putting themselves in front of those federal law enforcement officers for the purpose of disrupting what they're doing. I mean, it's fine for you to say you disagree with American immigration law. You think everybody who stays here ought to stay. I mean, I think you're wrong, but it's fine to have that view. But the beauty of America is if you don't like the laws the way they stand, you get to go to the elected politicians and say, hey, Senator, hey, Congressman, I want you to change this law. And if enough people go to them and want the law changed, it'll get changed. If it turns out that a law enforcement officer or some other instrument of the government is behaving in an unlawful way, you can go to the courts and get them to stop. You got judges issuing injunctions against the Trump administration almost every day. So this idea that your only option is to go and physically disrupt law enforcement, A, is insane. B, it's dangerous. The best way to not have a law enforcement involved death is don't show up in front of a law enforcement officer with your 2-ton truck trying to block what they're doing, and then don't hit the accelerator when they try to stop you. I mean, it's insane, but it is being actively encouraged by so many Democratic politicians. They say this was a murder. You've got Tim Walz suggesting that that ICE agents are a Gestapo. You've got people saying you got to put your bodies on the line. I mean, it goes back to the same sort of conversations that we've had before. I mean, there is a way to change the law, and it is not going out and physically disrupting what's going on. But when Democratic politicians are telling people that these folks are essentially Nazis, that we're living in an authoritarian state, it's natural that people are going to respond this way, because that is the kind of thing that comes from the kind of dangerous rhetoric that you've got coming from the left right now. It's going to lead to more violence, which is the reason you're saying this was not an isolated incident. They've seen other people trying to ram ICE agents with their cars.
Yeah, being a student of history is always a fun thing. It seems that time is definitely not linear. It seems to be more circular. You go back to the 50s through the 70s in our country. Most folks don't remember that the 70s were marked by thousands of bombings.
That's right.
Folks that just did not agree with policy, so they said, hey, let's just go out and bomb abortion clinics and bomb this and bomb that. And go back and do your reading. So that was the 70s. The 50s started that era of the protest culture. Now you've got an entire society of kids of that culture that seem to be it's like we used to value military service as an honor. And now this almost seems like the rite of passage to the left is to protest, to get in the way of the law, to be seen and heard in ways that we haven't seen in almost 70 years. That circle kind of continues. And cycles, I studied finance forever. Many things takes about 80 years for a full cycle to come back. It seems that we're kind of getting back to that mindset of where, hey, the only way I can make a difference is to go out and get in the way.
Right.
To be heard, to be loud, to not participate, to be upset all the time.
Well, and I would say, too,
it's a good way to go.
It's not a protest. I mean, it's one thing to if you want to stand on the street and say, whatever you want to say, hold up your sign that says ICE go home, hold up a sign that says defund the police. I mean, I disagree,
right?
But you got the First Amendment right to do that. You do not have the First Amendment right to take your Kia Sorento and put it right in front of a law enforcement officer and not move it so they can't do their job. That's not a protest. That's a crime.
And same with the mayor. I mean, getting up there dropping F-bombs. Get out of Minneapolis.
Absolutely.
And all that. It's political pandering. It is grandstanding. But at the same time, it's inciting.
It is inciting. It is absolutely inciting. And I guarantee you if you had a Republican telling a Democratic president to get out of that state, you'd have pretty strong reactions from the left. I have a feeling they would pull up pictures of Ross Barnett and put them on the news if you did something
canceled.
like that. That's exactly right. Y'all stick with us. We got Rob Roberson, the chairman of the House Education Committee, coming up in the next block. But coming up first is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Blow away these troubled times.
It's time to get real. Keeping it real.
It's time for you to get real with it.
And keeping it Mississippi. Your voice for statewide and national politics.
Yes!
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Remember, Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. Well, with us on the line is Rob Roberson, representative from Starkville, Mississippi, and the chairman of the House Education Committee. How are you doing this morning, Rob?
I'm doing great. Y'all doing okay this morning?
Can't complain. I can see you're prepared for a legislative day, already there and dressed at 8 o'clock. I'm impressed. I'm not surprised, but I'm impressed.
Well, I've kind of come to the conclusion if I'm going to get anything done, I better actually show up at a decent time and try to get some work done before people get here.
You know, that's one thing I think people don't realize if they're not at the Capitol, if they hadn't visited the Capitol, it's not like in Washington. It's not like you've got your palatial, quiet office where you get to sit all day and your staff comes in with different things for you to think about. I mean, it's kind of catch can in terms of space up there and looking for an opportunity to get some work done.
That's true. I do actually have an office on the fourth floor that I'm able to kind of get away, but the unfortunate part is everybody knows where it's at. You end up putting out fires all day.
Well, y'all got to work early this year.
We really did, didn't we? I've been impressed with how fast the Senate really hit the ground running. I think they're trying to get maybe some controversial issues that they find an issue with, trying to push forward and look like they're taking some leadership on, which I commend them for that. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that one of, if not the defining issues of this legislative session is going to be education reform, school choice in particular, but I know y'all have a bigger agenda this session. How do you want to walk us through a little bit what y'all announced yesterday?
Yeah, well, we had our last meeting for inviting parents to kind of talk about what school choice looks like for them. So that was one of the things that we did, but we actually dropped a bill that's HB 2 for the Mississippi Education Freedom Act, and that bill it's a pretty big bill. It's over 500 pages, and what most people are talking about is the Magnolia Student Account side, or the ESA, the part that has the school choice dynamic or part of. Of course, school choice means so many things to so many different people. You've got folks that think of school choice as being public to public. You've got people that think that public to private is where we should be. The truth of the matter is I think that a combination of the whole thing needs to be done. And anytime you tell parents what's in their children's best interest, and you're not the parent, I think we're running a risk of having a lot of problems in how we approach things. One of the most interesting factors of the school choice plan that we've seen in other states is that once parents have had the choice, and let's assume that parent chooses public schools instead of going to a private school, those parents are more plugged into that school because they chose to stay there. It's a psychological issue that I had not even considered until we started researching this a bit. I'm very excited about the potential of, making certain that our public schools. I've heard a lot of the rhetoric state that, we're trying to harm public schools. Nothing can be further from the truth. I've always been a public school person. I will continue to be a public school person, but the reality is not every school works for every child. And I don't care whether that's in an A, B, C, D, or F district. Some kids need something. Sometimes some kids need different things. And to tell a parent that they can't pick what's in the child's best interest makes zero sense to me.
So talk to us a little bit about how these Magnolia student accounts would work and who's eligible to participate there.
The way we're starting this program out, because we don't want to be in a situation where we do have budgetary constraints that we have to be interested in. The way the bill is set up is 12,500 kids would have the possibility of going to whatever school or homeschool or whatever it is that they would wish to do. But under this program, it would be split into two pockets. There's pocket one would be for children that are in public school already, and they are, whatever the median income is, it would be determined that if you're 100% of the median income, 200% of the median income, or 300% of the median income for the state of Mississippi, or for the area of the state that you live in, you will get first choice at being able to take that 6,500 or 6,700, whatever that amount is the state's part of the funding, and you would be able to take that to a private school if you so wish. The second pocket, which would be the other half of the 12,500, which would be about 6,250, it's going to be set up to where you have Public school and private school are in that bunch, but you're still under the 100, 200, and 300% thresholds. So the most financially needy people would give them the opportunity to take those funds. And as the system grew, we've got an automatic growth program over the next few years to where when we reach 20,000 students, it would kind of be fully implemented from our standpoint. The reason we think those numbers are good numbers are basically because other states have done this. We've been able to see some of the metrics that have worked there, and that's kind of who we think are going to be able or be willing or be wanting to use this program. So, I mean, when you look at the state as a whole, we've got about 435,000 kids in our public schools currently. If you added the private school kids into this, it would be another, you bump up to 500 or so. So the bottom line is, this is a way for us to do this without having to break the bank or break the budget, and also give us a view of exactly how to control this and make sure it doesn't get out of control from a budgetary standpoint.
And so, just to make sure I understand, initially it would only be people at that 300% of poverty and below who'd be eligible for the student accounts, or do they just have first priority?
They just have first priority, and it would not be based on the poverty rate. It's median income.
I'm sorry.
Yes, you got it. You're good. You're good. I did the same thing for the first two weeks when I was looking at this. I kind of so I completely understand.
Because obviously that's one of the criticisms that I've seen is that this is really a way of just giving money to Republicans who already have their kids in private schools, and so we're just giving them some money to cut their income. But it doesn't sound like that's the way this is structured. I mean, cut their expenses.
Right, but this is not structured that way at all, and it never was. It was intended to be structured that way. If you look across the board, we have always tried to make certain that the least of us, at least the ones that the ideas that we've been bringing to the table the last 10 years, we've always tried to make certain that we're trying to make certain that the children that most need this are able to get to it. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't want this to be fully accessible to everyone, but it also means that we're trying to give those that need this help the most the first take at it.
It makes sense. Well, I mean, which makes a lot of sense because wealthy people already have school choice. You can move district lines to a more expensive house. You can stroke a check to a private school. I mean, this is really the people who don't have access to choice are exactly the folks. Sounds like y'all are targeting.
That's exactly right. And what's more interesting to me is if you go to the coast right now, they have a form of choice going on that's been going on for years, and it's been the portability model part of this, where the public schools have been allowing kids to transfer from one public school to another public school. And it's interesting, if you look at the data, some of the best schools that we have allowed portability. They don't view it as taken away. They view it as a way for parents to be involved.
Rob, we're coming up on a break. You got time for one more segment?
Sure.
Wonderful.
I'll be here as long as you want me.
Y'all, this is Lucian Smith here with Chairman Rob Roberson, the Chairman of the House Education Committee. Stick with us here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Venable glass.
From breaking news to bold opinions, Richard dives into the stories shaping Mississippi and the nation. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Well, still with us is Chairman Rob Roberson, the chairman of the House Education Committee, talking a little bit about where things are this session. You know, we were talking about this just before the break, Rob. I mean, we're essentially surrounded by states that have school choice, and they have all seen, as I appreciate it, that education for everybody seems to be improving by having these programs in place.
Well, it's really kind of common sense whenever you have the ability to let people choose where they want to go, and there is some type of competition competing for the students. That by itself should make it better. I really don't understand why that anyone in our state would push back against that, especially in view of the fact that from what we've seen so far, and especially the states that surround us, that they've had really good outcomes with this. Now, what we're doing, I would even call what we're doing a full-fledged school choice program, because we have it limited. So that we can kind of keep a handle on the budget side of that. And that's purposeful. We're trying to kind of slowly move into some of this so that we don't make some mistakes. But on the same token, giving these parents the ability to match their kid with the school that works, why would anybody fight that? And public schools are going to exist regardless. Now, we need to have a conversation about consolidating administration so that we can make certain that more money is being put into classroom. We need to have those conversations. But the part that we're talking about now is just allowing parents to make that choice. And I've had some of my colleagues, we've talked about this, and I've had some of the administrators say, well, why are we not treating public schools and private schools the same with the efficiency or how to make certain that the money is spent, those kinds of things, or the testing. And my answer to any of these people is if parents have the ability to watch what's going on, and if they are getting the best product from their school, that's the best kind of efficiency that you can ever have, is to have a parent and a child that's actually involved in learning, and you'll get more out of that than the systems that we currently have in place. I'm not convinced that we're doing all this testing we're doing is about to a hill of beans anyway. I would really like to get our teachers in a position where they can teach, not have to teach to a test constantly, which is absolutely ridiculous.
You know, one of the concerns I've heard on the behalf of the independent schools, the non-public schools, is government control. I mean, what kind of strings ultimately come with accepting these dollars, and do independent schools need to be concerned that the state's going to then come in and start manipulating their curriculum or otherwise trying to exercise control over those schools?
We don't have any. If you're a part of a private school association or whatever, those systems are still in place. The whole point of having school choice is having the differences so that the parents can pick and choose what they think works best. When it's all said and done, we're hopeful that this opportunity to let parents choose plugs in that efficiency gap that maybe we're missing in a lot of places. You know, one of the first things I learned in business when I was at State, one of the ways that you are able to vote your way in or out of a business is to be able to leave. Mm-hmm. This is a system that is a closed system. We tell parents, you have to send your kids to a school, and not only do you have to send your kids to a school, we're going to tell you, we're the government, we're going to tell you what school to send them to, unless you're wealthy, and then you get to pick whatever you want to do. To me, that's wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that applies, I think, in the public-to-public context, too, because, if you're in a bad school district, if you live in a bad school district that is adjacent to a better school district, well, if you're rich, you can go buy a house over in the better school district and go over there. But that's not an option that's available to everybody.
That's absolutely correct. Now, one thing to keep in mind, we're not even forcing, even under the public-to-public, under this bill, we're not forcing the receiving school to take any kids. If they say that they're completely full, we're not trying to force these schools that are already at a limit to take children that they just can't take. But it's a funny thing to me, if they had a good quarterback next door and they wanted to come over to your school to play football, I bet you'd find a space for that child. I think it's just hypocrisy at its best whenever you tell parents and kids that are struggling in a particular school system that, this is a government-funded school over here, but we're not going to let you come in over here because you don't live over here. We've got to find a better way to handle those types of things.
So under the House proposal, how does public-to-public work? The home school district can't keep you from leaving, but the receiving school district has to decide whether or not to take you?
That is correct. Now, within that policy, you can have whatever standard you want so long as it's not an illegal standard and so long as it's not a standard that's discriminatory in some way. This is already going on, especially on the coast, like I was saying earlier. They're already doing a lot of this. And it's worked very well. You got some of the highest performing schools on the coast. They're allowing their kids to figure this out, their parents to figure this out for themselves. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where statewide it's not going on. So hopefully this bill and us pushing forward with this and what the Senate did this week, it seems that they've gotten on board with some of the things that we've been talking about.
So when you say that the receiving district can set standards so long as they're legal, so they could say we're only going to take kids who've got a certain GPA and let them come in?
What they could do is they could say we're only going to take kids that are 2.5 and above, that haven't been in any trouble, because a lot of the school districts are scared they're going to end up with the children that have had a lot of run-ins with either the principal or the administration or the police or something like that. So I can understand that not wanting to take another area's problem. But on the flip side of it, we've got to maneuver ourselves into a place where we're able to capture all kids. And some of the disciplinary problems that you see in places is simply because some of these kids just don't fit in the where they're at.
Could the standards be athletic? I mean, could you say we're only going to take kids who are lettermen on the football or basketball or baseball teams?
No.
Okay.
No. We're sticking with the same requirement under the athletic associations. Even with that, you have to sit out a year. So hopefully no one's moving and willing to sit out a year just to try to play football or basketball or baseball because you have to sit out for a year.
And then what else is in the bill? I know choice is obviously the centerpiece of it, and charter schools being a piece of that, but you're also expanding on the literacy work from the third grade gate?
We are. We're expanding the coaches all the way up to the 8th grade, trying to make certain that we're backing up that literacy side. But one of the most exciting things that I think about this bill is going to be good is we're taking the model that we used for the literacy and we're putting it in with math too. So we're going to get math coaches, and that's, to me, one of the most vital parts of this is being able to give our teachers the ability to have math coaches available to them as well.
I think that's
we
great.
Also have the Tim Tebow. I think this is going to be the best part of the whole thing if we can move this forward. Wouldn't it be great to see the significant changes that we've seen in literacy be placed in math too, and the companies that would want to come to Mississippi because we've got some of the best math and kids that can read really well and plug in. I mean, that's just going to spawn economic development across the state.
That's fantastic. We got about 30 seconds, Chairman. What give us any final thoughts on this?
Bottom line is that the House is pushing very hard And I don't want anyone to state that that we're against public schools. We're not. We're trying to support public schools. We're going to continue to support public schools. But the bottom line is we shouldn't be satisfied where we are today. We know what that looks like. And if we have one child that's not getting educated, that's one too many.
Amen. Well, thank you for everything you're doing, Chairman. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross. We've had Rob Roberson, the chairman of the House Education Committee, on with us. Coming up next, we're going to have a little bit of an update from Arizona as we get ready for the Fiesta Bowl.
So unkind. I'll say so long to these sleepless nights. I'm just not good out for your downtown life. I could change, but that's not who I am. So bye-bye, Birmingham. Bye-bye, Birmingham.
From the Seabrook.com.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
On with the show.
Is back. Holy smokes. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Whatever brought you and me cannot be forgotten. I have been around the world, looking for that woman girl who does the.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. And here on Mornings with Richard Cross is, on the line, the one and only Richard Cross. How you doing?
Lucian, good morning. Thanks for sitting in the big chair.
Hey, I appreciate you letting me keep it warm for you a little bit. It sounds like, speaking of keeping warm, it doesn't sound like it's very warm there.
It is not. It's not actually as cold as I thought it was going to be when I first walked out behind the hotel this morning. It's probably upper 40s, low 50s, which is not exactly what you expect when you travel to the Valley of the Sun in January. It's interesting. My wife was looking at this. If you went to the long-range forecast a few days ago, up until yesterday, it was 70 and sunny for like a week. And from Saturday through, I don't know, the beginning of March, it's 70 and sunny every day and the golfer's paradise. But a little cloudy, a little gray, but that is not dampening the spirits of the Ole Miss folks that have made their way west this week.
When did you get out there? Yesterday? Or you been out there a little bit?
Yesterday. Yeah, we were little planes, trains, and automobiles like excuse me, like a lot of people seem to have been. So our flight out of Memphis was at 11:50. I think it was when it was scheduled. So I did the show yesterday morning, and we were on the way to Memphis when we got the first notification that our flight had been delayed. Ooh. It was like, uh-oh. And you've had that message pop up on your phone before, and you're like, okay. And you start thinking about connection time. And then it got pushed back a little bit more. And so I went into a little, not panic mode, but it's like, all right, we got to figure out what our options are. And basically there were none, at least not any good ones. I ended up on the phone with American Airlines, and we booked a backup flight from Dallas to Tucson instead of Dallas to Phoenix.
Okay.
And then would have driven from Tucson. I also booked a refundable Southwest flight that was leaving Memphis at like 7 last night and got in at 10. Turns out there was a medical emergency on the flight that we were supposed to be on incoming. So
wow.
We were going Memphis to Dallas to Phoenix. And the plane that we were supposed to be flying on was coming Dallas to Memphis. Something happened on there. It got late. And American Airlines did a major solid yesterday. So we were supposed to fly into Terminal B and then take off from Terminal C. And if you've ever been to Dallas-Fort Worth, the airport there, there are not two places that are farther apart than B and C. You got to get on the SkyTrain and go all the way around the airport to get around. They ended up moving it, and we were like 3 gates over. And so the 63 people on our flight that were making the connection to Phoenix walked off the plane, took a left, and walked right back onto the next plane. It was perfect.
I would have to think there was a pretty significant contingent out of Memphis trying to get over there.
Yeah, I mean, it was our flight, but it was apparently every flight for the last 2 or 3 days.
Really?
And not just Memphis. It was Memphis and Jackson and Nashville, and I bumped into people that were flying out of New York and said, man, there were a bunch of Ole Miss fans on there. And obviously Atlanta, all the places that are hubs. So it really is cool. It really is neat. You know, a week ago today, it felt like a little bit of a takeover in New Orleans when Ole Miss came in and faced Georgia. And I don't really see any way you have comparable numbers to that. I mean, I think there were probably 45,000 Ole Miss fans at that Ole Miss Georgia game. And I don't know how you do that, but I think it's going to be a really significant number, and it's going to feel like a home field advantage.
Yeah, just about everything I see almost every Ole Miss fan I know seems to be on Facebook posting about their trip to Arizona for it. So I hope that's a good sign of how well represented we'll be out there.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. It's been a fun ride, and I was joking with some people last night. I was like, at some point we all have to go back to work. And I was talking to him, he said, I'm going to have to wait until February when that American Express bill comes in and figure out what we do then. But for now, we're just going to enjoy it.
We really need the governor to call in at some point in the rest of the show just to declare tomorrow a holiday, because I have to think it's going to be a fairly low productivity day for most folks in Mississippi.
Well, based on his tweet this morning, it sounds like there may be a lot to celebrate tomorrow. I saw a post that he made earlier this morning about another significant economic development project that is going to be announced later today. And so who knows? Maybe there are lots of reasons to celebrate tomorrow. Well, it's Friday anyway, so.
So have you seen a fair
Nobody
number?
Should work on Friday.
Have you seen a fair number of folks out there, or is it with y'all's timing? Have you not had much of an opportunity?
No, there was an Ole Miss party that we went to last night. A really, really cool spot. The Wrigley chewing gum guy apparently made a lot of money in his life. Sold a lot of packs of gum. And there's a place called the Wrigley Mansion, which is kind of up on a hill overlooking the city of Phoenix, kind of looking back toward the city of Phoenix. And it is absolutely gorgeous. So there were a ton of Ole Miss people that were there last night. And my wife and I went to dinner. I'll just shameless plug. The next time you are in Scottsdale, there is a restaurant called Sumo Maya, Sumomaya. It is Asian Mexican fusion.
I bet that's good.
Interesting flavor profile combo, and it is spectacular. So there's your restaurant rec for the next time you're in the Scottsdale area. Well, but no, I mean, we walked into the restaurant and somebody said, "Oh, you just missed it. There was this big hottie toddy," and I missed that. We'll hear plenty of those along the way.
I'm sure. Well, how do you see things going down tonight? I know Ole Miss isn't favored, but they weren't favored against Georgia either, and did great. I mean, I feel like even if the odds aren't with us, there's a lot of momentum behind Ole Miss right now.
I think there is. I think there's a lot of confidence. It seems in a lot of ways like a team that has got something to prove, but maybe even more than that, it's a football team that seems to like each other. And to me, it's fascinating, Lucian, that there's momentum on the field. They're playing good football right now, and you saw that last week against Georgia. It seems like there's a lot of momentum in the locker room, too. To have kind of gone through everything the Rebels have in the last month with head coach leaving and assistant coaches back and forth and who's going to be here and who's not, they seem to kind of have galvanized things. You've had a bunch of announcements this week. It's crazy that we're in the era where you're announcing, hey, I'm going to come back to the school that I'm at next year and still be part of this team, but that's where we are. And when there's this immediate assumption that so many of the best players on the team right now are going to be wearing yellow breeches next year, and you find out that's not a lot of Chambliss coming back pending the approval of his appeal for another year with the NCAA and a bunch of other guys that are significant contributors. I think that's led to a lot of kind of locker room momentum and camaraderie. On the field, Miami's really good, and they're especially good on the defensive line. That is the most significantly talented part of their football team. They're physical, they're fast, and Ole Miss is going to have to play really, really well.
Do you think the stuff with Kiffin has motivated the players even more? I mean, to sort of want to win this as a way of I can't think of a nice way to say it, but just to sort of show him after leaving him?
Sticking it where the sun doesn't shine.
Exactly.
Along those lines.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure that if even if it's just subconscious, I'm sure there's some level of that. But Pete Golding in the press conference yesterday was asked if this team was trying to send a message. He was trying to send a message, and he gave a really long answer about these guys liking each other and playing for each other and kind of rallying together. And he wrapped it up with saying that aside from what this team says on the field, he doesn't give a blank about giving a message to anybody else. It was, I think, pretty pointed and pretty directed with what he said. There does not at this point appear to be a lot of love lost. And I think some of that has to do with players who obviously have eyes and ears and they see what's going on. With these assistant, Charlie Weiss Jr. deserves so much credit because he seems to have largely been able to kind of stay above the fray with the whole recruiting this roster and is he going to coach or not? From the beginning, he said, I'm coaching this team until this team is done, and then I'll go do my next job. There's some other coaches who've been back and forth that I think players look at and see like, man, they're trying to recruit guys off of this roster while we are making a run to hopefully win a national championship, to try to earn the right to play for a national championship. And I don't think that has set well with the locker room in a lot of cases. So we'll see. They're gonna get after it tonight, 6:30 Central Time, 5:30 local time kickoff.
It's going to be exciting, and it's Super Talk's got you covered the whole day. So stick here for the rest of the day, and with some great coverage. You want to stick with us for final segment, Richard, or you want to go enjoy being in Arizona for a little bit?
I'm happy to sip on my coffee with you for a few more minutes.
Hey, let's do it, y'all. Stick with us. We'll have more of Mornings with Richard Cross right after this.
From the
with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Savior of the universe. You save every one of us.
Welcome back, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross. And today, for this final segment, it is literally Mornings with Richard Cross because we've got Richard here on with us. One thing Lance and I have talked about a little bit, it feels like it gets a little tribal, as you know, Mississippi sports. You don't always see Mississippi State folks root for Ole Miss's success and vice versa. But there's been something about this that it feels like everybody's kind of pulling for Ole Miss. I know there's always some exception somewhere you can find, but this reminds us both a lot of the trips to the World Series in 21 and 22.
It's really interesting that you bring that up because I was going to ask you about that. I think we're all from somewhere, right? And I think most people know that you went to Mississippi State. And so I was going to ask you, I was like, I'm really curious because it's something on Monday afternoon we talked about a little bit on Sports Talk Mississippi when I was on with Borky and Haydad, and they approached it from the standpoint where Borky was like, absolutely not, you never cheer for your rival. And Haydad was like, no, the worst thing that possibly could happen for Mississippi State is for Ole Miss to win a football national championship. We kicked it around a little bit yesterday and kind of threw it out on the ceasefire text line. And it felt to me, Lucian, like the responses were split. Just right down the middle. There were people that were like, absolutely not, under no circumstances will I cheer for Ole Miss in anything. If they're playing the Venezuelans, I'm from Maduro. If they're playing, the old one is if it's playing for the Russians, I'm for the Russians. But then there were a lot of messages that came in that said, hey, this is good for Mississippi. This is good exposure for the state of Mississippi. Go get one. And I actually think that there is this sympathetic element that goes in with it, that even people that don't like Ole Miss, even people that despise Ole Miss, look at kind of what they've gone through and like, man, that's wrong what their former coach did to them. To have built it to this point and to be within shouting distance of what it seems as if you were saying you were chasing, and yet you have right here in your lap. And he's like, boys, I'm out.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people who are like, that's wrong. Go win it all. Go shove it in his face. Because there are a lot of people that don't like Lane Kiffin.
Well, and he makes that easy. But I agree with you. I do think that's a big part of it is you watch this guy who, in my view, made it all about himself, especially right there at the end, who presumably left the Rebels for LSU because it was a better spot to win a national championship. And you think, God, wouldn't it be fantastic for us to win a national championship and go, oh, yeah, good luck over there. Yeah. And I think as part of it is we all as Mississippians, whatever side of that divide you're on, there's nothing worse than somebody looking down on your state. It's like somebody can make fun of your brother, but as soon as you can make fun of your brother as soon as somebody else does, it's fighting. And that's kind of how I think it has brought people together because you're like, oh, Ole Miss isn't good enough for you? Well, we'll show you. We'll go win a national championship.
Just sit over in the corner and watch there for
exactly.
a minute, pal.
You enjoy it. So,
well, and to your point a second ago, I can think of, 3 other times where it feels like there's this kind of groundswell of, you know what, I hate them, they're our rival, but just go win it all. The back-to-back trips to Omaha, Mississippi State doing it first. There were a lot of Ole Miss fans that were like, this is kind of the last thing for them, right? The crown in the baseball, or the jewel in the baseball crown is the national championship, and that's the only thing Mississippi State's missing, and then they win it. And then a year later, kind of against all odds, as the last team in the field, Ole Miss does, and it's a cool story. The other time, you got to go back to 1996 and that magical run to the Final Four when Richard Williams was coaching Mississippi State basketball. That was just a fun basketball team.
True.
It was a really fun team, and I think there were a lot of Ole Miss fans that were watching that going, all right, this is a pretty neat story. Go ahead and make that run, and begrudgingly, we'll cheer for you.
I think that's a great analogy. Well, we're almost out of time here, and I would remind everybody that our Fiesta Bowl coverage is brought to you by Good Hope Land and Timber, Yinling Flight, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, Pilium Corporation, Barnes Crossing Auto Group, and the Mississippi Hospital Association. And this is the place all day. You just need to lock in, leave SuperTalk on, keep it on your radio, turn it on your computer, put it on C Spire TV, because we got coverage of this essentially all day thanks to those good sponsors. So what you got on tap for the rest of the day today, Richard?
I think we're going to be lazy for a little while this morning, do big breakfast / brunch. There's some pregame parties around the same. This area is really spread out. So we're in Scottsdale. The game itself is in Phoenix. It's about 20 miles from here. And so about an hour to get over to the stadium and hopefully cheer hard for the Rebels tonight. It's been fun to kind of be in a fan role as opposed to a work role the last couple of weeks. And
I'm sure.
So hopefully have a lot of fun. And Lucian, I genuinely appreciate you filling in today and tomorrow. It's always good to have you in.
Well,
you're welcome anytime, buddy.
Hey, you're kind to let me do it. I hope you have a great day and hope we got a lot to celebrate tomorrow. Y'all, this has been Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We got Fox News followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
SuperTalk Mississippi media production.